All right. Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I guess it's afternoon. Yep, it sure is. A little after 2 o'clock here on a fine Friday. I hope y'all are off work. The reason I was going to come on today was to talk about that exact subject, about work. And the whole idea, the concept of it, the jobby job. It's been a common theme in the last, it's been a while now, I guess. We've been on this, we've had the pandemic thing since November of 19. Life has changed quite significantly for a lot of people, myself included, everybody included. There's nobody who's got out of this without change. But I'm here to talk to you about why you might want to quit your job. Everybody I talk to is always like, nobody wants to work anymore. Nobody wants to work. Nobody wants a job. It's not that nobody wants to work. Nobody wants a job. Who wants a job? I mean, they talk about job markets, and that's the president. That's always their fault. The jobs. There's jobs. Who wants a fucking job? Life is too short. Who wants a job? Come on. I mean, if you got a job that you really, that you love, if you love what you do, if you really do, then hey, awesome. Good on you. More power to you. I'm not going to tell you to do otherwise. I just, my thing is that I'm saying, do what you got to do to be happy. And even if you don't have something lined up and you meet any of these criteria, I'm about ready to go through my criteria that would put a person in a place that you need to do some serious self-assessment and look at your situation and decide. Because, do you want to spend your life just being miserable, paying bills? The average cost, this was a February number, I believe, per household to pay bills, talking mortgage, gas, power, what have you, your internet, television, cell phone, your monthly expenses is about $5,111. Now that makes perfect sense. And when I was running the paint company, I used to, that was basically my month started with a $5,000 bill. And back then it wasn't that big of a deal because you're making money, right? So $5,000 to me at that point in time was really like a big fucking deal. Who cares? It's like, it's just, the cost of doing business. And that's before, payroll taxes, workers' comp, insurance, shop rent, fuel, any of those numbers, just so many different things. Just money going in, going out, just great, like crazy, but yet I wasn't making, much more than I did when I was just doing the shit on my own. And I had twice the aggravation, twice the frustration, more stress, and even though I was running my own business, it was, it was just to the point where it was just like, this is not making me happy. I don't enjoy this. The last 2 years I was in business, I didn't put anything on a wall. I was spending most of my time on the phone, dealing with, vendors and, on the computer, dealing with estimates and writing payroll out, and just, it got to be one of those things. And then, things kind of took a turn, so I kept going on my own, but then, I got to the point where, because of all the years of doing this type of work, that I couldn't feel my feet anymore, and it's you know. And I was like, something's got to give, you know. And I just kind of moved into a different space. And thank God I did, you know, because now what I do is what makes me happy. Do I make as much money? No. Do things get tight? Yes. You know, I mean, that's why I was, you know, I hate asking, but if you give this a thumbs up, I tell you what, it helps me. Every single person it doesn't take much on your end. Just give me a thumbs up. If you feel the inclination, subscribe to the channel, you know. I mean, that helps me keep doing it because I took everything that I had and I invested it in all this. The studio, the cameras, you know, the sound, the mics, all of it. Computer, you name it, all this stuff in here. I mean, this is, you know, it takes quite a bit to do this, but it was probably the best move that I think I've made, not only for my physical health, but mental health, you know, my sanity, because I do enjoy doing this. A lot of, you know, most of what I do is heartfelt. It's following, you know, my convictions, and it takes time to put together content, and it takes time to produce a show, and it takes time to figure out how to even do any of this stuff, because I never had any idea how to do this stuff. I mean, like I said, when I first bought all this shit, I had it all set up in a different room, in a different space, and I mean, I'd walk by that room and I'd look and go, well, I should get after it, and it just terrified me to death. And I'd just keep on stepping. I'd go back out and start doing woodwork again because that's something I know, you know? I mean, that's what I knew. That's what I was comfortable there in that space, right? Like I know my way around the wood shop. I didn't know my way around any of this. This was completely new territory that scared the piss out of me. And finally, I was just like, you know, it's time. Don't be scared about it. Figure it out, you know? And there's been a lot of ups and downs. I've put out some terrible episodes. I know that for sure. I think the production is getting better, but it's just me. It's just me. I'm the host and the producer, you know. But I'm figuring it out as I go. And so my point is this. If I'm going to read off some criteria. I just wrote this stuff down. And I happened to see a gentleman, I was just kind of looking around, and I found a guy that was, he was talking about the same thing, and it was funny how closely our ideas related. He'd actually put out a video kind of along the same lines, and I was sitting here writing down reasons why you might want to quit your job. You know, and like I said, I mean, you know, the average monthly bills for a household are $5,111. So what's that? That puts you at $61,332 a year. That's just your bills. I mean, that's normal, you know. And I mean, a job around here, I mean, in this area, you're not making that much money. If you do, you're upper echelon in this part of the country, but the bills are ridiculous. The rent's through the roof. Real estate's nonsensical. So I was just going to get into it. You know, the first thing I thought about was why you'd want to quit your job, okay? Do you hate Sunday nights? I found myself in that situation all the time, especially when I was employed by somebody, when I was punching the clock, when I had to be there Monday morning at 7, 8, sometimes 6, whatever, and then you're on the clock, and your ass is theirs for the entire day. And you're just looking at your watch, or you're looking at your phone, looking at the time. You take your break at 10 a.m. You got 15 minutes. You're back in, and at noon to 12:30, or some jobs, you know, you get an hour, which is not even, I mean, you know how fast, you all know what I'm talking about. You know how fast an hour goes by at lunch. I mean, it sucks. Like, you think, oh, it's lunchtime, and before you know it, you're looking and you're like, shit, I got to get back to work, you know, and you're going back in, and then you're just sitting there, like, say on a Friday, especially like a day like today, you're sitting there and you're looking at the clock, just going, God damn it. And it doesn't matter where you're at, right? Especially if you work a job where you can just leave things where they are, you know, and just drop everything and out the door you go. I mean, that's like Stanley on The Office, you know. I mean, when that clock hits the, you know, I mean, he's just watching that thing. He doesn't care. He ain't staying late, you know, and none of you want to either. Because you realized also that you stay late, you work, and, you know, you put in the extra overtime hours, and you just get hit with taxes. So there's one thing. That was number one. It's like, if you hate Sunday night and dread Monday morning, that might be a reason to, get the hell out of there. And here's another fact. Mondays are the days that have the highest amount of people that suffer from heart attacks. Why would that be? Because the job's so great? I don't think so. All right. Number two that I thought of was, if you've ever said hump day, hump day, hump day, if you've ever used that, if you've ever said TGIF, if you've ever said anything about like Mondays, like Nina off of Office Space, corporate accounts payable, this is Nina speaking, just a moment. And then she looks at the guy and says, looks like somebody's got a case of the Mondays. Have you ever found yourself saying some kind of stupid ass phrase like that for the day of the week, like hump day or TGIF or case of the Mondays? You might want to think about quitting your job. All right. Period. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, right? You're getting underpaid, overworked. You don't you don't feel like what you're doing matters, and especially if you're spending time during your day trying to look busy. That would fall under the qualification of a bullshit job. And I believe the gentleman that wrote the book on that, I think his name is Mark Graber. And he talks a lot about bullshit jobs and what that does to the psyche. So if you're working a job where you just have to look busy because you have to punch that clock because you need those 40 hours to pay those bills, and you're barely getting by doing that, you might want to it might be time to walk away. The other one I thought about was all the years that I spent using what we call the blue room in the construction business, and that is the Sandy hut, the porta potty. Those of you that work inside don't really know what I'm talking about. If you've been to a music festival, you know what I'm saying. But it's disgusting, but you get used to it. Like, you get to the point where it doesn't, you go in and, it's just, it's horrible. And every time you have to use the restroom, that's where you got to go. Like, I had an old boss that used to go in there and he'd like smoke cigarettes and fall asleep. And I never could understand how he'd do that, but to each his own. Here's the next one. Okay. So here we're on to number 5. So let's say, you find yourself in a job where you're responding to people with the same generic answer on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a per customer basis. Let's say you're working a customer service, say you're working in a bank, say you're working sales, and you find yourself giving the same answer. Like a guy I worked with for a long time. It was every day. Every day, somebody come up, ask him, how you doing today? And they'd say, well, fine. How about you? And he's just another day in paradise. Every customer, just another day in paradise. And, and I got to the point where I was numb to it. I went in a store the other day here that has a door dinger. You walk in and it's ding, ding, kind of like, and I looked at the guy, I said, how you deal with this all day? He goes, I don't even hear it. And that's kind of how I got with that. And I found myself in that rut too, where I was making the same statements to people, saying the same stuff. I tried not to. I always tried to keep it fresh and different for every customer. But when it's just a repetitive thing, and the thing is, and then you're starting to feel like, every customer you deal with, they're not looking at you as a human being. It's those niceties that you go through. Oh, how you doing? And if somebody, if you were to ask somebody that question and then they really told you how they were doing, you'd be like, whoa, dude, whoa. Too much information, man. I didn't want to know that. So if you find yourself in a place with your job where that's what's going on, where it's repetitive, saying the same thing, kind of like it's impersonal. You know what I mean? Like you're not dealing with people on a person-to-person basis. It's formality. If you find yourself in those positions, it might be time to quit. So that was number 5. Number 6 that I had on the list was, watching the clock. And we already talked about that. So no matter where you're at in the day, you just leave it and you walk away from it. If it's Friday, it's like time to get the fuck out of here, And then if you, I had number 7, basically if you feel like you're walking in jello, right? Like you're not going anywhere. Right? Like you're doing the same thing every day. You're getting no fulfillment out of it. You're not being challenged, okay? You've got no joy coming from what you're doing. It doesn't make you happy. There's no challenge to it. There's no You know, there's nothing that gives you any satisfaction. Basically, what you're doing is you're just making somebody else money, and you're scraping by and paying your own, paying your bills, and that's it. I mean, the next one I had was you just can't wait for Friday. How many of you can't wait for Friday? How many of you are just doing, you do the countdown? So I was saying, talking about hump day. And then as soon as Sunday hits, oh my God, you're like, shit. Sunday night rolls around, you're like, oh, God, damn it, got to get ready for them, and you wake up on Monday morning, it's like, it's like you take that deep breath and you go, oh God, here we go again. It's Groundhog's Day every week. If that's the case, you might want to think about quitting, The next thing is if you're breaking down physically or mentally or both. If you're working a job that's beating you up physically, if you've ended up at the hospital, which has happened to me a number of times. Like I said, I'm in a position right now where I've got, I can't feel either of my feet. I can't be on ladders. I can't be on scaffolding. Nothing like that. I just can't do it. I mean, what do you do? It's dangerous not only to me, but anybody else around me. So, once you start breaking down physically or mentally, and when you break down physically, a lot of times the mental breakdown comes with it because, you're not used to having that, that physical limitation in what you can do. And that can mess with you, in your mind. And then the last one I had was, that you have a desire to enjoy your life, and you feel like you're not, you feel like you're just, what are you looking at? What's the life expectancy in this country for a man? Around 80 years? Women probably a little bit longer, I guess. If you're just living just to punch a clock, pay bills, that's all you do. Pay bills, pay bills, pay bills, pay bills. For what? For what? It's absolutely ridiculous. And this, I keep coming back to the same thing. I know I'm being repetitive and that, but there's a better way. There's a better way to this. And I don't have the answers, but there's got to be a better way than this. We live in a system where we're just worried about getting that, getting money, which we don't even get. How many of y'all get ACH, direct deposit payments? So you don't even have the physical interaction of somebody handing you a paycheck. Now, to me, that was when I was working for people. That was always kind of a, like at the end of the week or 2 weeks or whenever you get paid. That was always like an enjoyable interaction when somebody hands you a physical check, even though that's not cash. But when it just goes into your bank account, then you know what happens when that thing gets deposited. There's no it takes any of the it's impersonal. So I guess that's a big thing too. If your job is very impersonal, and you just feel like you're in Groundhog's Day every day, I'd say quit. It's up to you, of course. You make the call, but you know what? Even if you don't have a backup plan, and chances are things are going to work out. And especially if you've got any kind of thoughts about what it is you would rather be doing. Like if you sit there and you think I'd rather be designing clothing or making hats or doing something like this, doing a podcast or writing, being a freelance writer or a photographer or playing music or doing something completely different, go do it. You don't have long, and it's too short to sit there and wallow in the mire. And I think that what happened with the pandemic was it woke a lot of people up to that fact. A lot of people realized that, this is just fleeting and it can go at any second. And I'm not going back to work. They talk about all these job create. Well, if people aren't going back to work, then you got to ask yourself why. What were you put here for? To work? To punch a clock for somebody? To make somebody else money? While you struggle to get by? When you can't afford to go to the doctor, you can't afford, you got to make choices between, I mean, what kind of food do you want to buy, right? And you got to settle for the shit that's full of GMOs and pesticide rather than getting, buying something that's, better for you. So you're sitting there and you're busting your ass. You're making yourself numb to the world, numb to everything, numb to life. You have fights at home about money. That's the biggest stress on your mind. It's the only reason you go to work. If the only reason you go to work is because of that paycheck, you might want to re-examine it. That's all I'm saying. It's about what's your purpose on this rock? It's kind of an existential thing. Are you only here to have a job? I mean, that's what politicians always bring up. It's always about the jobs. And we put ourselves in this mindset that it's all about a job, right? So you've made this agreement because that's all you've ever heard through life, right? Like, you go to high school, you need to get yourself some good grades if you want to go on anywhere, and then to get you to college, you got to get your college degree and put yourself $100,000-$200,000 in debt, and then you got to go hit the street and get a job. But in the meantime, also you got to get married. So then you're looking at as a dude, which I can't speak from a female's point, but as a dude, say you have a relationship with a female, and all of a sudden, you're together for a couple of years, and then here comes the pressure, right? When are you going to get married? When are you guys going to tie the knot? And you're sitting there going, fuck, I'm barely fucking making do right now. And that for the most part, fellas, I mean, the first time I almost got married, I mean, that thing was, I'm 22 years old looking at the cost of that, and I'm working for the city of Portland going, how the hell am I going to make this shit work, Thankfully, it didn't happen. I mean, it was one of those deals where obviously you're like, breaks you up when it all falls apart, but then you look at it a little while down the road and you go, God, dodged a bullet there, and then you're looking at having kids, right? You got to have the kids. So then you get kids, now you got a house, you got a mortgage, you're arguing with your wife all the time over finances. It's not anything to do with your relationship, it's finances for the most part. I mean, that's really the reason that most people fucking argue in a relationship, especially when in a marriage, is it's money. You don't know how you're going to make things work. And then you want other things in your life. You find yourself where you're bogged down, you're you got kids you got to run around and deal with. You got diapers to change. You got to keep food in the fucking thing. You got to pay the bills. I mean, you watch your money. You watch your money hit your bank account, and then boom, it's just fucking gone. And then you're like, how? And then you have something like what we got going on right now. Say you do have a job where you got a 401k, and you're trusting your employers, accountants, or whoever they deal with to invest your money appropriately. I mean, look how many people lost money in 2008. How many people are losing it right now? I know a lot of people that have lost a lot of money because, I mean, you got a 401k, it's going into a mutual fund. Stock market tanking, you could lose everything. You could lose it all. And then everything that you worked for to try and retire at whatever age, 65, 67, what's the age for Social Security now? Is it 67, something like that? It's 67. So you start working, basically at 18, regardless of going to college, because college is work too. So if you go to a 4-year university, it takes you 5 years to graduate. That's 5 years of work, And they're just training you to go out there and be a, quote unquote, yes man. You got to go in for a job interview and sit there and be on your best behavior. It's kind of like going on a date, like your first few dates, right? The salad days. A job is much the same. How many of you out there have had this experience where, you're going out on a first date with somebody? Are you showing them who you are? I mean, what do you go do? You go to a fucking movie? You go out to dinner someplace that you can't afford? Go out for drinks? You don't sit down and burp and fart like you normally would, right? You don't you don't go in the bathroom and just leave the door open and hang a piss like you would if you're home by yourself, right? You're making sure that you don't, you're taking, looking at your teeth, brush your teeth, making sure you got the deodorant and all the scents on and everything else. And, oh shit, I'm wearing my work boots, I got to change it. I mean, you're trying to be somebody that you really aren't on a day-to-day basis. That's the salad days. It's like a job, the same way. You go in for your interview, first impressions, right? First impressions. I would rather not, as an employer, which I'm not anymore, but when I was, I would much rather know, like, who this person is, like, just being who they are. I don't want to hear this, yeah, yes sir, no sir bullshit. I used to hate that too. You hire somebody, and they show up in the paint business, right? The first thing they think is that you want to just see them really haul ass. And some guy grabs a roller and he starts flying around. He's flinging paint everywhere. He's missing spots. He's up and down he's just running like a you got to go over there and go, hey, look, stop. Just stop. Set the roller down, hold up, I'd have that conversation with guys all the time. And be like, look, here's the deal. I don't give a shit. You can run around here like a fucking idiot, but I said, you're going to have to come back and redo it. I'm like, what I want is efficiency, I was like, get the job done, with the best quality, in a timely fashion. If it takes a minute, then that's fine, because it costs more to go back and fix things. And relationships are much the same, I'd say. Because you put yourself out there as being something that you're not necessarily. That's why I call it salad days. When you're in the first part of a relationship with somebody, it's the salad days, because neither one of you are being who you are, You don't, you just don't act like, you don't go to the fridge and drink milk out the jug. You don't, like I said, you don't sit there and let out a big burp or fart or whatever, I mean, it's the salad days. You don't find out who somebody, everybody, I met somebody, they're just great, and then time goes by, and then, the honesty surfaces. And I think that that's the same thing with the job. You think about that. How many jobs have you had where you go in, you're dressed right, you're all, looking right, you've got your shit in a folder, and your resume's all typed up, and you've doctored that up a little bit, and you got a haircut maybe, you're clean shaven, you brushed your teeth right before, made sure and used the mouthwash, sprayed a little fucking something on you, a little aftershave, made sure your fingernails are clean, you're not covered in tattoos. I'm just saying, I was just thinking about this earlier, just about people that work jobs, and I know that you have to do it. I've been there. I've had to do it. I did it most of my life, from the time I was 14, 15 years old. My son's doing the same thing right now, We've had the discussions about college and, what goes into that. And I quite frankly, it's, it's up to him. It's not anything that I'm saying he has to do, because I think the universities they're done. I think they're dead. I think people are wising up to the scam. What's the point? You're going to go sit someplace for 4 or 5, 6 years, whatever, and rack up all this debt and go out and I know they're talking about what they say they're going to forgive a bunch of college debt, but what was it for people that had gone to ITT or something? And then they just rack out another $750 billion in this stupid Inflation Act. Kind of weird how Biden just shows up just to sign that thing, and then boom, he's out the door. He's out the door again. He's got there riding his bike, eating ice cream, talking about corn pop. The whole thing stinks. The whole thing stinks. The whole system is a mess. I I mean, you were basically born. Now think about this, okay? Think about your experience in school. What do? You sit in a row, right? In an assigned seat. You raise your hand if you want to speak. You raise your hand if you need to use the restroom. If you got to go to the restroom, then you have to have a hall pass or bathroom pass. You can go out there and there's somebody that's going to check that to make sure that you're okay to be going to go to the fucking bathroom. If you want to speak, raise your hand. That's not an education. It's, you walk single file lines, right? I know when I was in grade school, that was it. The bell rings, right? So you're conditioned to the bell. The bell rings. You stand up. You grab your little lunch box. Or if you're eating hot lunch, you make sure you got your little meal ticket. And then you stand there, boys in one line, girls in the other, and you stand there and you wait for the teacher to open. And you follow the teacher down the hall, and then you go through the line all nice and neat, and you sit down at your appropriate table. I mean, it's not that much different than the working world. It really isn't. I mean, and that's all they're trying to do. You're not getting an education. You're getting an inundation. You're not getting an education. You're getting a certification. And it's not a slight on teachers. I know a lot of teachers. I know that you all are doing, you're doing the best that you can. You have the best of intentions, for the most part. I mean, I had some teachers that was questionable. But, most of the people I know that are in the education realm of things really do have, good intentions and, but they've also gone through the system, and so they're a product of the system, and so what they're doing is producing more products of the system. And somewhere along the line, it's got to stop, because we've obviously seen that at this point in time, the system is broke, like big time. Like it's broken, bad. I mean, when we're talking nonstop war, this country has been at war every single year of its existence except for 8 years. The United States is 246 years old. Why do I know that off the top of my head? Because I just add 200 to my birth date. I'm a bicentennial baby, 1976. So 246 years. Out of that 246 years, we have been at war in some capacity for basically the whole, 238. 8 years in 246. How many are we involved in right now? We just flew 4 B-52 bombers into RAF Fairford in Great Britain. They're over there doing exercises with NATO. What are we gearing up for over there? We've got problems in China. We've got problems with Russia. We've got problems in Syria. We've got problems all over the fucking place. It doesn't end. And why? Why has it got to be that way? Those people from all these different countries they're no different than you and I. Doesn't matter. Religion, whatever, color of skin, they're no different than you and I. None of us are any different than any of the rest of us. I mean, we might think or believe different things, but that's because we've been inundated with things that we haven't had a choice about. So, like I said, it comes to, like I was talking, free will. You don't have it. You think you do. You think, you have this you have this connotation that, well, God gave you free will. Do you really have free will? Do you? Think about that. There's a lot of questions you need to ask yourself. But what I wanted to talk about was these 10 questions with work. And work and a job are different things, I believe. I think a job is completely different than work. I like to work. I don't mind working. I do so every day. But I work on what I want to work on, whether it's artwork, whether it's writing, whether it's doing this, whether it's building furniture, cutting down trees, whatever it might be, fixing trucks. Any number of things can come up in a day that's work. But when you're doing it and it's something that you, a lot of that stuff is a pain in the ass. Fixing trucks is a pain in the ass. But you know what? You agreed that you were going to drive a truck, so that's part of it. you know? So there's a difference between fixing your own truck or being a mechanic and having to fix somebody else's vehicle all day, every day, you know? Some guys like doing it, I suppose. I mean, to me, I got so sick and tired of you can only paint so many walls and ceilings before you just like, what am I doing? You know, and some people are fine with that. Some people are good with it, just doing the same thing. They're happy to, do the same repetitive thing. I mean, and that's fine. If that's what floats your boat, then hey, good. That's all good. Whatever makes you happy. But if you've ever asked yourself any of these questions, like I was talking about earlier, then, I mean, my suggestion, and I'm not telling you what to do, but my suggestion would be, you might want to think about putting in your notice. And if you don't like your boss, you might want to just think about asking for your final check and just bouncing. Because let me tell you what, you'll figure it out. It'll work itself out. Everybody's so worried about the security and, I'm not going to have this shitty cheese job anymore. Well, guess what? You'll figure it out. I mean, you're never going to know unless you jump. You know what I mean? You can stand on the end of the diving board all day, but you're never going to know what it's like to bounce off the thing and learn how to dive, And maybe you do a cannonball. I don't know. What's so bad about that? Maybe you make a huge splash. Maybe you make a huge splash and you go, wow, there's a world of possibility that I never thought existed. All I had to do was jump off the fucking diving board, even though I didn't know how to do a proper fucking dive. What do they call it? A swan dive? Or a tuck? Or I don't know what they... I'm obviously not a swimmer. I float. That's about it. I'll jump off shit, though. I'll jump off just about anything. Up to like maybe 100 feet. Over that, I think I did one that was 120 one time. Boy. That was terrifying. Check out, what's the name of the place? It's up in Northern California on the Yuba River. I know that my buddy Jack out there probably knows what I'm talking about because he's up there, him and his brother up there in Sacramento. I believe it's called Emerald Pools, if I remember right. One of the coolest places I've ever been. And if you haven't seen it, I'm going to pull it up just to show you, just because it's a cool video. It'll end things on a good note if I can find it. Yeah, Emerald Pools, and this is off the, it's either the I think it's the Yuba River. Anyway, you park and you got to walk into this place, and it's weird. It's like an optical illusion because you're walking in there and it's like the water, it's like it's flowing uphill, and then you come to this big open area that's just it's a waterfall and it's huge cliffs and there's people all over the place. And they're cliff jumping, and it's cool as hell because there's just people you can just find. There's different cliffs, different heights, and like we went back there, of course, with me and my crew. We go in there with a big ass cooler full of beer, and we had heard about the place. Like this was back before you had Google Maps or any of that shit. Like I was the only guy we were like 19. I was the only guy that had a cell phone, and my cell phone was like a brick Motorola thing that. I mean, there wasn't even a game or anything you could call on it. That was it. So, we had the old Rand McNally in my vehicle. I'm going to pull this up here and see what we got. It's pretty cool. These characters out here now, they've got slack lines out there and everything else. Let me pull this up. So the reason I'm showing you this is just because, use this as like a metaphor for what you're doing in life. Like, take the leap. What do you got to lose? So here we go. This is, let's see what happens here. I just pulled this one up. I haven't watched this before. There's you quitting your job. I'm just saying. I thought that was a pretty good metaphor as far as just jumping off, I mean, it takes, It takes a lot of trust, a lot of faith in yourself, and a lot of willpower to trust me. I've jumped off that cliff. That's up there. Like, it's terrifying. I didn't do anything like that. No way. I went off and I was like straight, I just wanted to I was grabbing my nuts and making sure that my feet were pointed and going straight into the water because it's up there. Like, you don't even understand how high that is. That guy that went off straight-legged, that was me. I mean, I'll jump off, but I'm not doing any of that goofy shit. But anyway, it's a cool spot. That spot right there is the big cliff. I watched the guy up there one day, and he sat there. He sat there cross-legged, like in the meditation position, with his eyes closed, and he just sat there. And he was next to go. He sat there for probably a good 30 minutes before he went. And then he just jumped up, got on his feet, and boom, off he went. I was like, whoa. And yeah, I went up there, and it was, I mean, that's way up there. You don't even understand. It's huge. Let's see what these cats do. My love is burnt out. My love is burnt in the sun. See how there's people just hanging out on all those cliffs. That's what it's like. I mean, there's just people out there everywhere. It's a cool spot. But I just wanted to show that because I thought that was a pretty good metaphor. So, I mean, that's what it's like. That's why I always say walk away. You never know what the possibilities are. You take the leap. Buy the ticket, take the ride, see what happens. Anyway. If you want to watch more of that, you can check it out and just type in Emerald Pools on YouTube, and it'll come up. With that in mind, I'm going to sign off. Probably going to come back tonight at 10. I just had that on my mind, and I thought I'd put it out there. But I mean, something you got to think about. It's not all about the fact that people don't want to work anymore. People want to work. People have an innate desire to work, but do you want to have a job? Some of you do, some of you don't. If you do, and if you do have that job that you love and it's fulfilling, then hey, awesome. But if you find yourself in any one of those scenarios that I just happened to read off at the beginning of the podcast, then it's probably worth putting a little deeper thought into. That's all I'm saying. I mean, what do you got to lose? Treat it like jumping off the cliff. You don't know what you're going to find under that water, or the exhilaration that you're going to find on the, on your way down. I mean, why do we have the need to jump off a cliff? Got to ask yourself that. Why do we have the inherent need to take risks? Some of us do, some of us don't. If you're in that category and you're feeling like you're bogged down or whatever, and those criteria, fall in line with how you're thinking or feeling, and hey, I'd encourage you to, do what you got to do, because you're not here forever. And every day you spend doing something that you don't like, something that is breaking you down, something that's making you miserable, it's not good. It's not good. We weren't put here to be miserable. So with that in mind, I'm going to sign off. Be good at it, and all things be kind, and do no harm. And I'm out till later tonight, probably around 10 o'clock, if I remember. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. All right, peace out.